Hello, 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 Tactical Imagination Club. Here we are at episode 3 of what is now entitled The IMAGINAUTS. And as Julie, the Bureau of Tactical Imagination studio wizard, says, that is Imaginati. I love that so much. So a couple of announcements before we dive into today's interview with the fascinating and fabulous and wonderful Jenny Ambrose of Puree Fantastico. One is that we have a new name, the IMAGINAUTS, and many of you were a part of this conversation in the Tactical Imagination Club to rename what was formerly called the Imagineers, which I can't use because that's owned by Disney, and I don't want to mess with Disney. Do you want to mess with Disney? And many people had great ideas, and I had promised a free 90-minute session with me to the winner. And it turns out I ended up choosing my own idea. But I got so many good ideas and from all of you, and it jogged my imagination so much that I actually decided that the IMAGINAUTS is the title, but that every week and with every communication, there's a different tagline. And many of those are inspired by the ideas that you guys gave me. And I still want to give prizes, but now I want to give multiple prizes. So tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to get on Facebook Live for probably 10 minutes max and have an awards ceremony. And 3 of you are going to win prizes for most ridiculous name, most sexy name. I don't know what the criteria are yet, but 3 of you will win prizes, and those 3 of you will join me in a small group meeting where it can be like a little class, it can be kind of independent study, like you get to pick my brain, work with each other, and do some visual branding coaching work with me and with each other. So that's going to be really fun. I'm excited to do that. And come to the award ceremony tomorrow if you are hoping to be one of those people, or if you just want to come witness the spectacle complete with sound effects and some kind of trophies. So there's that. And then so many announcements today in our group. The other one is I have now officially announced the next visual storytelling workshop. It is called The Art of Showing Up, and it focuses on selfies, self-portraits, and your visual brand. And for those of you who are newer to the Tactical Imagination Club, the visual storytelling workshops are these free week-long events that take place over email and in the group, where everyone who joins is making every day. It can be 10 minutes a day, it can be 2 hours a day, whatever you want, whatever you have time for, you are welcome. And I just teach like crazy. I put out prompts and assignments every day. We create a structure around your making and a community around the sharing and learning of what you're making. So the Tactical Imagination Club gets completely taken over with people sharing images and talking about them. And since selfies and self-portraiture can be kind of a vulnerable thing to explore, particularly in the way that I like to explore it, which is to really look at what it means to show up creatively, show up authentically, and represent ourselves in the larger visual culture, which is so full of confusion and oppression and trends and all the things that make it kind of a minefield for us. I have really strict policies in the group about how we comment and how we share and how we take really good care of each other in the space. So if you're feeling a little nervous about that stuff, you get to decide what you share, and I will help create a culture of respect and even liberation in the group as we figure this stuff out. So I'm very excited about that. All right, those are the announcements. Feel free to ask any questions you like in the comments. Julie today, the Bureau of Tactical Imagination studio wizard, there she is kind of in the dark in front of the bright window, is keeping track of the comments in Facebook. And you can ask questions all throughout this episode, and they can be any kind of question that comes to mind while listening to my conversation with Jenny is legit. And near about 20 minutes toward the end of this episode, we will dive into the questions and start answering them. So anytime you have a question, put it in. Julie will keep track for us and we'll talk about it. So I am really excited to introduce you all to Jenny Ambrose. She is newer in the Tactical Imagination Club than many of you. I think she just joined in the last couple of months. She is both a client of mine and now I am a client of hers. Jenny is the person responsible for the upcoming total rebrand of the Bureau of Tactical Imagination. I, of course, am working on images, and she's just helping me frame the whole thing and put a big story around it and design it. She is a genius. It's very rare that I will hire someone else to do images and branding with me. So that's a little measure of how much I love this person's mind. Her company is called Puree Fantastico, and the latest news is that the Puree Fantastico and the Bureau of Tactical Imagination are becoming partners. So while the Bureau of Tactical Imagination, me, and the people I work with still focus with utter laser beam attention on visual images and visual culture and creative process, when we have clients who work with us who are also looking for design, web design, full rebrands, copywriting, types of illustration that we don't do, etc., we bring in Jenny and Puree Fantastico to work on the branding and the design magic. So I'm excited to introduce her to you for that reason. But even more so, and in keeping with the kind of goals of this interview series, I'm really excited to introduce you to the way she approaches creative projects, which is kind of different than the way I do. And I think there's a lot we can learn from how she approaches her projects as we're working on our own visual brands and our own images. She's building her career as an unapologetic polymath, you know, like during a period of time where in the business world, there's so much focus on, you know, focusing on one thing and finding your niche and narrowing. She kind of refuses anything less than what she calls the muchness of her work. So, you know, she works with companies that are tiny, that are just one person. She works with very, very large corporations. She does incredible, sometimes obsessive personal projects. She writes, she does all kinds of things. She's a plate spinner. She's a multiple plate spinner. And she somehow is able to kind of hold and balance all of it within Puree Fantastico. So I think I should stop talking about her and just bring her on. So Jenny, I am inviting you onto the screen. Uh-oh, she's not showing up here. Jenny, there she is. Okay, come on onto the screen. And since we don't have my canned applause machine today, we're gonna have to do an air high five.
Boo!
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I cannot tell you how big my heart is right now. That was quite an introduction. Thank you.
Oh. Yay.
Yay.
Warm, fuzzy moment for us in public.
Yeah.
Public displays of affection.
Which are probably my favorite displays of affection.
Yes.
I'm all about it.
So, can you talk to us as the multi-plate spinner, many plate spinner you are? What are the plates? Just give us an outline of the different things that you do personally, professionally, etc. And actually, while you do that, I'll share my screen and I'll just start to kind of just go through some of the slides so people can have that visual aid while they are listening to you. And they can see you at the same time, right? So we're all present here. Okay,
Okay. So
tell us about your plates.
Oh, my plates. Okay. So there's creative in the sense that it's conceptually creative. Maybe it's how a commercial would be shot, or the style of the thing, and not necessarily the iteration. So the birds that you just showed, those are called style boards that I would make, and then a designer or an animator would animate them for a commercial. So the cellist man that you showed next, that is me creative directing a photo shoot in Germany while I'm still in Florida, not speaking German, but helping an orchestra create images and create, sort of a branding presence, whereas for 70 years they did not have one. And how do you work with someone to create something, and beyond a logo, but more of that emotional connection? So I would call that creative direction, art direction. Then there's design, which is someone has the creative direction but needs the iteration. So it needs a brochure, needs a business card, needs a website. Illustration, which is they just need something beautiful, or they need a mood conveyed. They need, the astrology people. I made that up because I really, really love astrology. There's writing, and there's verbal, and there's nomenclature. So that's naming a business, creating brand tone, maybe determining the copywriting, what you would say on social media. There is the strategy. So let's say you're a photographer who has a boudoir side of your business, a wedding side of your business, and you also like to photograph little babies. So clearly two, out of those three are direct odds. And how do you marry those three? And how do you create a brand that works in each part? So that's more strategy, and then that leads to creative direction, and then that leads to design. So for me, it's been an awareness of how much I take for granted in my natural abilities. Right. And then how much, do people want, and what do people need, and what are those gaps? And it's so easy for me to just say, oh no, here's a little gap. You need to think about your brand architecture. Oh, you need to think about your brand tone. And it's my ability to see not only the forest and the trees and little leaves and little acorns, and it's seeing the whole woods there and everything that's made that up. So in art school, they don't ask you for creative direction. They say, here's a project. Here's here's what you have to do. And then you go do it. So I would name a company, and then I would make an advertising campaign, and then I would design the campaign, and then I would say, well, here's how you would want to reach your customers. And they would, okay, Jenny, okay. And they let me, run wild. And I never realized until I came into the big wide world what that was, and how many roles I could fill. And they are plentiful. Yes. And they're growing every day.
Yeah. And I find myself wanting to ask you questions like, how do you get all of this across to your potential client when you first meet them? Which I think maybe let's save that question for the question and answer at the end. I do want to ask you, do you happen to have earbuds? Because I'm hearing my own voice feeding back.
I do have earbuds. Give me 1 second.
Jenny and I have been in the green room. We've tested this whole thing out twice, and it never occurred to me to ask you that. I'm sorry, Jenny.
No, I had them on hand because a neighbor is playing sad Celine Dion music, and so it's like, you need these. These are a necessity right now.
Yes. So you were just describing all of the different hats that you wear in your work, and I think during the question and answer, we'll throw that question in there if we need it, which is like, I'm so curious how you approach your own branding as someone who looks at the forest and the trees and the acorns and the mushrooms and the insects.
And the birds and the songs they sing.
How those conversations go. But for now, I want to stick with your spinning.
You and I worked together, and we had talked about branding, but then you had been like, oh, I need a copywriter. And for the most part, it's just me recognizing an opportunity and being like, I do that. You know, I do that too. Because you watch people's face melt off when you're like, I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and I do this. And also I have this, and also I have a whole caravan, other stuff.
Right, right.
Because my husband and I went out for donuts last week, and I knew it was the owner because he was like, we have these donuts, and we have these donuts, and we also have espresso. And if you don't want espresso, we have all of these. And I'm like, you are the owner. You are the owner. And it was the first time I was on the receiving end from someone being so enthusiastic about their muchness.
Right.
That I was like, aha, this is how it comes across. And so I'm always open. Being like, rein it in. Shut up.
Right. Right. People come to you all different avenues, and then they enter the muchness and their face melts off. That's the process. That's the face melting process.
The covenant, so, the arc of the covenant.
Going back to the spinning plates. So you described all of the stuff you do kind of within Puree Fantastico and the muchness there. But talk to us also about the personal projects and the other things that you do right now. So
I know you're telling me about Kubrick. So the Kubrick
project. And about the sloughing project.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So thing.
I'll talk about the analytical side because that's the part that always takes people for a loop. Okay. I first have a degree in anthropology. And so when I approached design, I did so under the guise of, this is a cultural artifact. I am making a message. I am connecting on a larger level. I'm not just making a microsite for Tide. And that's why corporate America did not work for me. But when I look at design and when I experience design, it's very